Okay, so this morning we are joined by the wonderful Nadine Monks from Forces Family Finance.
Hello, Kelly.
How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I just wanted to say how much I've really been enjoying this Money Talks week. These topics have been really diverse and really thought-provoking, and all of your presenters have had lots of different things to add value and give people stuff to think about. And I think that's the most important thing, that you're raising awareness of it. So I feel really lucky to be part of it. So thank you. And hopefully I can somehow make Will sound really exciting on a Friday morning.
You will. You always have a good aura about you to make anything sound exciting.
Oh gosh.
But I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. We wanted to start the conversation with things that you kind of put off, and you kind of think, oh, I'll come to that, or a few of us were saying the other day, we have to really be in the, okay, I'm going to adult today. I'm going to do what I need to do and work through those jobs, and also open up the conversation about money, about wills, protection, and just if more of us talk about it and share, then that's going to be positive to everybody. So no, thank you for agreeing on the Friday. It's gonna be another session, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's I've got a little bit of issue with connectivity. I'm finding you're cutting out a bit, Kelly. So
Okay.
am I still coming through okay with you?
Yes, you're still absolutely good.
Okay, great. So what I thought I would start off with is talking about all of the reasons that people commonly say why they haven't got one, why they've put off having one, or when we may be talking about other stuff and I approach people and say, well, have you thought about it? They're like, no. And just maybe kind of like tackling them head on.
Yeah.
So the biggest one that people come back with is, well, I haven't got any money. I don't own anything. I'm not rich enough. But, a will isn't really necessarily about that. Yeah. Money is one side of it, but it's also about putting down in a legal document what your final wishes are. Okay. So that could be something as simple as possibly your funeral arrangements. It could be where you want your personal effects to, even if it's something sentimental. And most importantly, if you're a parent, your biggest riches and your assets are your children. And with wills, that is the place where you can legally nominate guardians of minor children. So regardless of what you do or don't have, from an asset or financial point of view, like those things that don't cost anything are very real things, and your wishes and what's important. So that would be kind of like how maybe I would talk to people about that side of things, in like a common objection, shall we say. I get a lot of like, oh, it's for old people, it's not something that like a young person should be thinking about. Totally get it, totally take on board what you're saying with that one. Yeah, okay, as you get older, of course, the chances of you, I'm going to say it, dying, are more likely. But the reality is, I can guarantee you at some point we are all going to go. It's just we don't know when. So why would you not want to plan for that, knowing that something, it could happen at any minute, particularly as like military families, we all kind of prepare for like tour. Maybe we've got like candles in the cupboard for a power cut. Like, as mums, we've got the emergency change of clothes for the poo disaster, like whatever it might be. Like, why would you not just have that tucked in a drawer? That's kind of my thought, really. So another big one is, oh, well, if anything happens to me, like my mum will have the kids, or they've got godparents. Well, that's fine. That's a thought and an intention in your head.
Yeah.
But unless that's legally written down on a piece of paper, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And also, godparents is not a legal entity in itself. It's not a legal contract like marriage, like a will, like a trust. And I think it's important for people to understand that. A godparent is very much more an ethical, a religious choice, a sentiment. It's not a legal entity. And the reality is if there was a very terrible and tragic situation where maybe you had more than one well-meaning family member come forward, so let's just say in this scenario, mum and godparents, there's then a doubt as to who it should happen with. It causes anxiety and dispute between those people. Well, the children aren't allowed to decide. They're not legally allowed to make that decision. So what happens? And actually the reality is that that's in a decision that has to be reached jointly between the court, social services and those family members. That is not a place like you want your children to be at in that sort of scenario. So that's a really, I know it's quite disturbing and depressing, but that is like the reality of it. Even if you are lucky enough to have people that would want to come forward, sometimes it can actually cause problems in a weird kind of way. And then I suppose, it's so morbid. I don't want to think about it. Well, I agree. But I think as you sort of really rightly put this morning, this week is about just tackling things head on and saying, you know what, I am going to adult. I'm going to do a bit of, excuse the pun, life admin. It's going to happen. Why not just deal with it, sort it out, chuck it in a drawer, not forget about it completely, but it's not, you don't have to update your will that regularly. Normally if there's just a major life change, or if something changes in the content of that, and that is the beauty of something like that. Actually, once it's done, it's done. Unless there's particularly complex family dynamics or finances going on, reality in a whole lifetime, if you started doing it sort of when you were quite young, like maybe in your 20s or 30s, most people probably only need to update it like twice, possibly 3 times, depending on maybe if the marriage doesn't work out or something like that. So but when you have that relationship with your advisor, you can always just check in and say, do I need to change it because of that? Or if you're working with them on other things, they'll say, right, well, I think now you do need to update this or whatever. So that's really what I'd say about that. And then the other thing that's more specific to working within the military community, and sort of something that I highlighted today, was my other half's got one with the Army or the RAF or the Navy, whoever they're with. Well, there's kind of 2 points to that. One is, well, great, that means they've got a will, but it doesn't mean you as their partner or spouse has got one, because a will is individual to that person. So even if you're married, for example, literally if you own a house together, it gets cut in half in terms of an estate process. If you've got a joint bank account, it gets cut in half. So you're still your own person in your own legal right. And there are a lot of limitations again to this will that a lot of people just call Army, RAF, Navy. The formal name for it is the MOD 106 form. And what that basically is, it is a will and it is a legal document, but it is a basic will. And it's very much a duty of care from the MOD, where if they are sending away our servicemen and servicewomen to areas of high conflict or putting them at high risk, of course they have a duty to ensure that they have their financial affairs in order. And if that's recognised as part of the occupation, I can't help feeling, well, maybe we should take heed to that and then say, like, this is a real thing, like my employers are doing this for me free of charge because it's that important.
Absolutely.
However, and it's great and it ticks the box, but it does bring other things around it. So first of all, and I'm sure everybody will have different experiences of these, but what I tend to generally find when I ask people, including my own husband, is, well, what was your experience of making this will? And a lot of them will say, I can't even remember what was in it. I did it when I first signed up. Or we all got pulled into a room and got told we had to do it, write it here, go over to that person and then they'll sign it. Now, in terms of making a will and putting down your bespoke personal wishes to do with your family and your loved ones, that is not really an ideal scenario. Not only are you potentially at a heightened emotional state, maybe not thinking clearly, but you're also not really in a forum where you can seek proper advice from someone who understands the process of what the implication is of what you're putting down.
Yeah.
So like I say, it serves a purpose. It's better than nothing. It certainly needs to be there, but you do have the option to do a private will. Okay. So I'm literally going to read off, because I'm very aware that there will be skeptics out there and people thinking she's feeding me a line. I have in front of me, this is the MOD 106 form. It's on our website, so you can see a copy of it. You can Google it. Okay. MOD form 106, right? And on here, before you actually fill out anything, there's a list, and a list of all the circumstances whereby you should seek professional or legal advice before completing it. Okay. And this is the list: where you share or purchase the property with someone who is not your husband, wife, or civil partner; where you wish to make provision for a dependent who is unable to care for themselves. So that could literally mean your child. Where there are several family members who can make a claim on your estate. For example, second wife, children from a first marriage, children from a relationship of which your new partner or spouse is not aware, but you wish to take care of them. Where your permanent home is not in the UK, if you have foreign bank accounts or overseas properties, that can come up if you've had long-term postings abroad. Where there is a business involved, where the executors reside outside the UK, where the beneficiary is on state benefits, if the money is to be held in trust, if your estate is complex or likely to be of high value. Now, isn't that interesting? Out of all of those points, the very last point is actually if it's complex or of high value.
Yeah.
A lot of them are circumstantials brought about from daily life.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many people have children? How many people have an ex-spouse? How many people have children outside of their relationship, from other relationships, previous relationships? There's so much going on now. We live in a very complex world in terms of like relationship and family makeups.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of what I wanted to use this opportunity to highlight and to make people aware of. Another thing that does come up a lot, which is a really valid point as well, is lots of people say, oh, well, you know, why would I use like someone like you? You know, I can do a will for free. 100% you could do a will for free. And so, I mean, say, for example, you could go to WH Smith. They've been doing it for the longest. You could get a will pack. I think it costs about 45 quid, something like that.
Yeah.
You can buy one on Amazon, similar sort of price. Some companies might give you like a pack, which would be that pack.
Yeah.
But then, you know, as a free will, but then you've still got to complete it, right? And I think that's my kind of point with that. Just like any task, right? Be it cooking or ordering a takeaway, DIY, getting in a professional, whatever. Of course, you can do things, and it will save you money, right? And there's nothing wrong with that if you feel confident in the job and in what you're doing. But for something that important, and the fact that actually in reality it really doesn't cost a lot of money, you know, you do looking on average, depending on what needs to be in the will, you know, between, you know, 100 to 200 pounds. It's like, it's not a lot of money really in the scheme
in the
of
grand
things.
scheme of things.
To get that in order. And then the other point of that is as well is, right, okay, let's say you were able to do the will and everything was really just straightforward. Well, where are you going to store that really important legal document safely? Because let's look at some of the scenarios where you could go, well, if it's a house fire, well, then your will's probably gone with it. You know, how are people going to know where it is or how to find it? It's going to probably take them a while to root through all of your stuff. You know, there's that kind of element of things to it as well. Whereas if you do it with a professional, they're either going to store it for you or have some kind of storage solution which is long term and secure. So that's the kind of other layer of the kind of DIY versus using a professional. And then as a conversation that we were having earlier, kind of offline as well, was also, you know, you've also got the kind of argument of solicitor versus like a normal will writer as well. And for the benefit of people, you know, obviously a solicitor is highly trained and qualified in a whole host of legal matters. and the complexities of other forms of like estates and trusts and wishes that you would have. For the vast majority of the population, that level of estate planning isn't necessarily needed. And also you have to work around, you know, the solicitors' times, generally go to them, and it will be a lot more expensive for that reason. So you do have this other kind of middle ground option, which is using someone like myself or a will writing company. But you do need to check out their credentials on it. And something as well that we were talking about earlier that's really important for me to kind of make people aware of is that will writing is not a regulated area of financial services. It's currently self-regulated, and that's also on a voluntary basis as well. So, you know, of course, I volunteered to be self-regulated. I pay into a federation. I have the relevant professional indemnities and a qualification to do so. Yeah. However, it is a sad but true fact that there are some people that could turn up at your doorstep. Legally, they can turn up and write your will. They're not doing anything wrong. But how good it is and the quality of the advice and the recourse your family would have if it went wrong is questionable.
Yeah, it's shocking. Absolutely shocking. I was surprised that it wasn't regulated.
No. I think there's a big push for it, but just like many things, I think COVID's just put that back again. And put that back again. So that's the kind of overview that I wanted to give. I think there's, you know, don't want to overdo the whole wheels thing, particularly on a Friday. I wanted to highlight some really kind of key points and maybe some reasons why other people have been thinking, well, this is why I shouldn't do it. And I see it as my job to say, well, actually, I think these are the reasons why you should do it, and to give you some context to that. And what you decide to do with that information is up to you.
I think as well, it might start the conversation of, you know, talking to your partner and saying, when did you make that will? Because I know, you know, it was probably at that point of joining. It's probably never been changed since. And like you highlighted, lots of people's circumstances change. So, you know, you need to seek that advice that it stipulates on the form. If your situation has become more complex. Another question I had was, okay, they might have that separate one. You wouldn't have signed it. So there is that. That's not a joint will then, is it? That's a separate for them.
Well, a joint will isn't even a thing. So you have like a term in the industry, like a mirror will or a married will, married couples will. You still both have wills on an individual basis, but what tends to happen is, not always, but if it's a very simple case, the married couple's wishes mirror each other's, i.e. they both want the same thing, but you still have to both have one individually. So it's not actually that it's a joint will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense.
And obviously with something like that, a lot of the time, not always, I hasten to add, couples do want to sit down and do it together. So there's always that feeling of jointness. But when it comes down to it, from a legal entity, you know, you could have one, your husband, you know, demonstrated by this, I can guarantee you the vast majority of military households, just by default, the serving person has a will, which is probably this document. And the spouse doesn't have one at all. So just to show you don't have to have a joint one.
And I think I put in a poll later to see who's actually got one, because I think it'd be really good to see. If you haven't got one, please again watch this information to see, right, okay, now we've opened up the conversation and it has to be, you know, open, and let's talk about it and let's get these things sorted. Start your adult day of like you say, putting your life in order. But
absolutely, you know, the thing is it's an important conversation to have, isn't it? And it's easy to put off, but I'm very much like, you know, if you put aside some focus time for it, you know, it's just one of them big jobs which actually is only little in reality, to get things done. Just a few points to add as well. The way that kind of wills work is that if you make a new one, and when a new one, it'll be defined by the date that you made it, then it would automatically supersede the old one from a legal point of view. And then there are certain legal contracts that would also make that will null and void. One of the biggest ones being marriage. So what should happen, but what I would say, I would put a big emphasis on should, yeah, is particularly with the MOD wills, is that if, say, someone signs up, you know, single, whatever, makes that will, and then they become married, in the background, that marriage kind of voids that will. So what should happen is that will then gets updated on records, like they do it as part of that. Right. Okay. Yeah. Should happen. It is. I know that it is encouraged, and it kind of does happen vaguely. Yeah. Most of my personal experience is based around my husband. It's going to be biased because, of course, he's got me nagging him. Yeah. You know, so I know that he's got that sorted. But we did have to have that conversation, and I was like, "You did update it, right?" Because yes, that's the really fact important. That you're married will recognise that, and it will kind of work out loosely in the end. But if there's a bit of paper that just makes it clear, then get it done. You know, it's all about removing the doubt, making it easier, making it quicker. You know, that's what it's there for, to help people out at a really stressful, horrible, emotional time. Yeah. And then the other side of that is let's say there's a amazing sudden rush of people that are serving as well that want to do a private will. It's really important, again, on that basis, that they update records with that. And there's a very specific form for that and a process for that, which in terms of our client base, we will help our clients through and coach on that, but they can get their information from their RAO pay clerk, you know, about it. If anybody really wants it, I can look up the JSP and find out where you'd be able to find the information on that. But we do have the forms that we help our clients with as well.
So they can.
So there's a whole little piece of admin around it, but it's important that it's consistent. Yeah. Because if particularly in the forces, if your employer doesn't know that there's another will that supersedes that one, that can cause problems as well. You know. Yeah. So the records need to be clear. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
That's another thing. Just in case people go out and then do a private will and then don't update that part.
Don't tell the other one. Yeah.
Okay. You've got to tie up all the loose ends.
Yeah. I kind of feel like we need like a diagram of this process that we go through.
Oh, you're setting me a challenge now, aren't you? I feel a blog coming on.
I think it would be an amazing blog. Follow these.
I'm writing it down.
Sorry, Nadine, making more work. But I think it would be a really good visual process to say, done this, tick, done this, tick.
No, well, I have done that. I haven't done that, but what I have got as well, which I'll be happy to post on the group if you want it, is I do have two other visuals, which I'm happy to share. So one, I'm just going to kind of unprofessionally just hold it up rather than screen share. This one is like a flow chart to show the rules of intestacy. Mm-hmm. So that's just basically what would happen if this paperwork wasn't in place, the natural law of succession and to how that would work. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And then the other one is a flow chart about parental responsibility. Mm-hmm. And that's particularly relevant for people that have children outside of current relationships or are unmarried as well and have children. You need to understand where the law lies with that, because you might be quite surprised.
Okay. Yeah, no, if you could update that, and then I will, because I've created a Money Talks unit. Okay. So everything, all resources, the videos, all the content's going in that unit. And then, you know, the people that weren't able to watch them live can then work through the unit, and everything's in one place for them with everybody's contact details as well. Because I think what this week has managed to achieve is to normalize things. And to say, you know, don't be ashamed to say, I haven't got a will, I haven't got a pension, I haven't got this, because just by engaging with this content and starting now, you know, you're making progress in the right direction. So don't think, oh, I haven't done that, I'm terrible. Just say, right, okay, what can I do now to change it and move forward, and just normalize a conversation. Yes, it's Friday and we're talking about wills, but it's important, and you know, you've given it in a way that has not been morbid. It's just been practical advice that people can really tap into. So,
and who knows, where we don't really have the time to have these things, maybe this weekend sit down with your other half with a glass of wine, nice and chill, and be like, do you know what? What are we doing? What's the plan? Do you know what I mean? Do we have a plan?
Yeah.
Just go there, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about that before, about planning and everything. And you're totally right. Just sitting down in the most relaxed state and just having that open conversation. So no, and you worried about not having enough to talk about the Dean today. It's been amazing.
I'm terrible. Once you get me going, that's it. All right. Well, I really hope that was useful and easy to digest and not too morbid and scary and because I know a lot of people feel like that about wills, but it's done now. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you happy for me to share my details, Kelly?
Absolutely, go for it.
So website is www.forcesfamilyfinance.co.uk. There are those charts already on there, those diagrams, along with a blog and the reference to the form that I've been talking about, the MOD will form, and also all of your details of how to contact with us. We're also on all of the local social sites. Something that's quite unique about our business is that all of our advisors are also in-house will writers as well, so we can be really holistic. We don't kind of like ship out to third parties and stuff, because for us we want to like maintain that relationship with people, because it's a personal thing.
Definitely. I'm just gonna stop the recording now. So excellent details, so thank you. Cool. And it's been an absolute pleasure, Nadine. Really,
thanks for having me, Kelly. I really appreciate it.